Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are going to have a great show tonight. Robert Maxwell is here from his little cabin in somewhere in Ontario to talk some Bigfoot and Sasquatch sightings and his own personal experiences. But first, let's say hello to each and every one of you as we introduce Kitty Caddywhack in the gold medal position. Race fan with a silver, T-Bone heading up the bronze medal tonight. And Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show, because if you're going to talk Sasquatch, you got to be nice and lubed. So, Mel, thank you so much for lubing us up. Thunderhead, how are you, my friend, as we kick off the Super Chat with Kitty Caddywhack? Thank you very, very much. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Road Flare, how you doing tonight? Paramarv, always a pleasure to have you here, my friend. As well, Mama Catherine, there she is. Mwah. I'm just going to throw you a kiss tonight, Mama Catherine, because you're going to be busy tonight. Mama Catherine is signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. She would appreciate it if you did. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, how are you? Carol and Mario, thanks for coming on in. Pissing me off, Evan Walters. Frankie B, how you doing? Necessary Dialogue and Kathy Evans, nice to have you both here. K17 Odd, how you doing tonight? As we continue on with our roll call. Oh, look who's back. It's Luscious Jules, everybody. Luscious Jules. Forrest Louie, how are you? As we scroll on down on our list here, and up next, who are we going to say hello to? Well, let's take a little peek here. Let's take a little peek, because there's a big conversation going on here. Werewolf, how you doing? JSCO, nice to see you. As we continue on with our roll call with Kurt M. How you doing, buddy? Nice to have you here. We scroll on down, and we literally will next say hello to Operation Shutdown. J. True Seeker, good to have you both here. Who is next? Doc from Wyoming has returned. Doc from Wyoming will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Mickey G, how are you tonight? And Shane Gord, good to have you here as we continue on with our roll call and say hello next to Andrew B. Algaray over on Twitch, so excited to talk Sasquatch tonight. 750 Sasquatch squats, 550 pounds apiece. Legs are jacked for tonight's show. Good job out there. Good job. All right, Aggravated Progressive, how are you? Nice to see you. Undead Jed. And Jeremy, how you doing? Thanks for coming on in. We scroll on down next to East Coast Turnaround over on X. Nice to see you. And B, how are you? Hillbilly Herb, nice to see you. As we continue on with our roll call. Nelson, how you doing tonight? Thanks for joining us. I'm Hardcore over on X. Good to have you here as well. Sharon Sunshine, thank you for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call. Up next, who do we have? Well, let's take a look. It's Jose Sanchez, everybody. If you wave at Jose, he always waves back. So give it a try. I promise he'll wave back. Digger Dog, how are you tonight? and Grandizer. Nice to have you here. Crystal Cat, thank you for coming in early. And be like Crystal Cat. Get your tickets for Caribou Con. Benno, where have you been hiding the last couple of days? Good to have you back, buddy. And let's see here. We're going to get the radio side going here. How about that? Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us as we bring in Robert Maxwell to talk Sasquatch in Northern Ontario. He's got some great stories he's going to share here momentarily. But first, we're in roll call on our YouTube side as we say hello to Juan. Welcome to SOR Chat. We scroll on down, and up next, who do we have here? Well, let's continue on here as we got about 30 seconds. T-Bone, thank you for the amazing super chat. The super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very much, T-Bone. We love you around here. And let's see here. I think we're caught up. We're caught up right now. Excuse me. But right now, I'm going to ask all of you to throw your horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods. We're together, friends. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our site as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Caribou Con, September 18th through 20th in beautiful 100 Mile House, British Columbia. Join us at cariboucon.com and get your tickets today. We have an amazing show tonight. We're heading to Northern Ontario, where researcher, experiencer Robert Maxwell is going to talk about the legend of Sasquatch. Yeah, it's been a Sasquatch week here so far, and we are going to continue that tonight. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will join us with another creepy story. We'll follow that up with Terry Hall and his gorgeous mustache coming on in for the weird news of the week. And of course, not so weird, we're going to talk about the launch of Artemis 2 on their trek to the moon, wondering if they'll see some aliens. Let's hope so. Robert Maxwell is a Canadian photographer, videographer, and homesteader based in Canada, whose life took a dramatic turn after a chilling encounter in the wilderness. Through his YouTube channel, Cabin in the Woods, Robert shares firsthand experiences and evidence that he believes point into the existence of Sasquatch. His story includes witnessing a massive shadowy figure in the forest, discovering unusual signs that suggest something unknown is living just beyond the tree line. Oh, I hate that feeling. I do, but it's so exciting. Robert's experiences don't stop at a single sighting. In 2025, a podcast appearance, he recounted a terrifying incident during a family retreat where he believes a creature threw rocks at his daughter, an encounter that enforced and reinforced his belief that these beings are intelligent, aware, and possibly coexisting with humans in remote regions. Let's bring him on in. Robert Maxwell, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
I'm very well, Dave. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, I just got to clarify something in my own mind. Are you in Ontario or are you in British Columbia?
I'm in Ontario, Northern Ontario.
Oh, beautiful country there. Beautiful country. No people, all trees, all lakes, and the fishing is fantastic.
Exactly. All the things I love in life.
Man, you know, when we individually get on this lust for Bigfoot, and I'm not saying a sexual lust, I'm saying a lust in trying to figure out what this is. How do you have a conversation that's normal with people now after knowing and seeing what you've seen?
Well, it's difficult, that's for sure. I know that you having experienced plenty of weird things yourself, it puts you in a different category than the average person. And you have to be prepared for the weird looks, I find. But my main strategy, quite honestly, is to not bring it up too often with people I know. Sometimes they find out about me, they come across my YouTube channel and they bring it up, and then I just tell them plain what happened and why I ended up here. But it doesn't stop the weird looks. So I think you just kind of have to develop a thick skin and realize that ultimately you follow the truth down this rabbit hole far enough, and it's going to make most average people uncomfortable. Personally, I'm okay with that, but it does take some getting used to.
Tell me about it. I don't know how to have a normal conversation anymore. That's the problem that I have is, you know, most of the people that I talk to on a daily basis, they have no clue that I'm into this. You know, my core people do, you know, but even like when I have a conversation with my dad or even my daughters, they're not saying, "Hey, did you go look for Sasquatch this weekend?" It's never like that. You know, I'm struggling. And, you know, the funny part about it is, as a former sports journalist in Vancouver, where I knew every player in the NHL, I knew most baseball players, most football players, basketball as well, I could have a conversation about sports anytime, all the time. Now, I don't even know who the hell the players are anymore, except for the big names. So I'm like screwed in conversation pieces now. So there's a forewarning. If you see me out in public and you want to talk, let's just talk Sasquatch or UFOs. It's much easier that way.
To just get right to the point. Yeah, why not?
Absolutely. Cut through the small talk, Coke versus Pepsi, politics, or whatever. Let's just get to Bigfoot and UFOs. It's much easier that way. My friend, how long have you been doing this?
Well, not very long, all things considered. I had my first encounter, the one that set me down this rabbit hole of truth seeking, in September 2024. And I've been following the road of obsession ever since. Not all that long, but I don't plan to pull up or slow down anytime soon.
I don't think people fully understand the magnitude of, I'm going to use an overused term here, even though I don't think it's correct, PTSD after having an encounter. They don't understand the immediate, how can we say, injection of want and desire to have that happen again.
I agree. It's something you can't really understand until you've experienced it, until you've internalized it. That bizarre mix of a fear that's deeper in its breadth than any natural fear, at least for me, and yet this insatiable curiosity. I've got to fully understand the truth of what I saw. That's been it for me. And I know everyone reacts to encounters differently. Some people just swear off ever going into the woods again. Other people turn into nutcase researchers like me, or maybe somewhere in between. But bottom line is, it changes you. And I think everyone who's had an experience, not just with Sasquatch, but any of these fringe topics that your average person says shouldn't exist, they're going to come out of it different.
What changed in you?
Well, for one thing, my career. I certainly wasn't planning to become a Sasquatch researcher or content creator. I had a YouTube channel for a couple of years prior to my experience. I'm a filmmaker by trade. But after I saw what I saw, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to let it go. And my therapist at the time suggested I start that quest by making a video, just a simple sitting in a lawn chair talking kind of video where I explained what I saw and put it on my YouTube channel, a sort of coping mechanism to work through it, I suppose. And
I got to cut you off. I got to cut you off right there because you just brought up something very interesting. How do you approach a therapist saying that you saw Sasquatch? You had an encounter with Sasquatch. I need to know this.
Yeah, well, I spoke with her about I think it was less than a week after the encounter itself. We had come home. The event happened on the west coast of Canada, Vancouver Island, where my wife and daughter and I were vacationing for the first time to the west coast. And I was having these online therapy sessions, once a week, just to help my mind think in healthier ways and whatnot. And this lady, she was not the dismissive type. I guess a good therapist shouldn't be dismissive to anything you share, but unfortunately some are. This one wasn't. She, when I opened up about what I had seen, didn't laugh at me, didn't mock. She seemed to believe me, actually. Very open-minded and kind lady who had had some weird experiences of her own. Not Sasquatch, but some potentially paranormal type of things, as it turns out, which she ended up sharing in response to my sharing of my story. So bottom line, she believed me, and she knew, I think, in that session we had shortly after the event that I needed to talk about it, and I needed to try to understand it. And here we are a year and a half later, and I'm not sure I do understand it any better, but I'm trying.
I want to get into your experiences in the next half hour because not many people within their first year and a half of looking for Sasquatch have 2 encounters.
Agreed.
Okay. You were one of the lucky ones. And I think you know that. I've seen 3 of them in my life. A pair in 2013 that were maybe 100 feet apart. And then I saw the big guy in 2022 on Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. And I was with my boy and my 2 hunting buddies. Even though we weren't hunting, but, we were just out there looking for Sasquatch when the big guy came. When you look at yourself, do you consider yourself lucky that you've seen these? Or do you consider yourself being pulled into some sort of quagmire regarding a mythical creature that is not supposed to exist, and now you've been put on this path trying to figure it out?
I think it's a bit of both, honestly. I do consider myself lucky and blessed to have had 2 sightings, even though neither of them were very lengthy or particularly clear sightings, but sightings nonetheless, sightings that I consider definite. So on the one hand, given that I've decided to dedicate my life to trying to understand the truth of these beings in its entirety, I do consider that excellent luck. On the other hand, logically, I have to look at the remarkably slim odds of having 2 such encounters in such a short time. And I've had people tell me that this sort of thing starts to follow you. I don't really like to make claims like that without some logical basis. I try to be logical in all my research, all the content I put on my YouTube channel, as much as possible. But I do think there may be an element of truth to that somehow, and I'm not saying I'm particularly special or have been chosen by Sasquatch or anything like that. I don't know what to make of it, really, but I do think that there is a correlation between my intense focus on the truth of all this and the fact that I've had 2 sightings in a relatively short time, when others will go their whole life and not have 1.
There's a lot of people who don't have 1. Look at the late Dr. John Bindernagel. He looked for this thing for 70 years. Never found it. Never found it whatsoever. I mean,
Well, he
it's
did claim to have that one sighting in 2007 in Kentucky, but it was a very brief and fleeting sighting.
I want to ask you, as a filmmaker, something that you do, you're a photographer, you're a filmmaker as well, outside of being into Sasquatch. When
Mhm.
you had those encounters, because the big argument is you have a camera on your phone. Why are you not filming? Why didn't you get a picture? Why didn't you record what you saw? You know, that's the big argument that everybody comes up with, the skeptics come up with. Yours were so fleeting, mine were pretty fleeting. You don't have time to even think about it when your eyes are sitting there staring and looking and thinking, what the hell am I looking at? Is this really real, this moment? Tell us about that.
Yes, well, I should start by saying that I did get a brief clip of the creature in my first encounter. It's not a great clip. It's not particularly close. It's not particularly clear because of the density of the forest and foliage. The second sighting was even more fleeting, and the creature was moving incredibly quickly, and I stupidly tried to get a telephoto lens screwed onto my phone instead of just filming with the built-in lens, and I have regretted that ever since. So I got nothing that time except for a little bit of blurry footage through this ill-attached lens. But I think these creatures recognize cameras, and I also think that, as you said, the fear response, it's beyond just normal fear. You can't really describe it to someone who hasn't experienced it. I don't want to make excuses for the shortage of clear video of these beings, but my own experiences and the experiences of hundreds of others who I've spoken to, read about, there's something going on here that makes it harder to get good visuals of these beings than it would be to photograph or film a bear or a coyote or a woodpecker. It's not the same thing. And exactly what the differences are, I'm still trying to figure out, to be honest, but there are differences of that, I'm certain.
I can see where you would be baffled by that. You know, it is one of the difficult things that we do. I mean, trying to figure out why this creature, if people do take pictures, are always blurry or pixelated. You know, and I'm not saying the type of pixelation that we see all the time when people zoom right in and into a plant and say, see that eyeball there? See that nose? You know, not like that. But you're right. A lot of the photos that we see are blurry. A lot of them are pixelated. A lot of them we just miss them. It's like they vanish into thin air. This creature is either the greatest hide and seek champion ever displayed on this planet, or, and a lot of people don't like hearing this, it may have some sort of unique ability where it can cloak or disappear or vanish or whatever it may be. We just don't know. And that is what thrills me about it. How about you?
Oh, 100%. I would be lying if I said I didn't find the paranormal aspect particularly intriguing. I think we all end up heading in that direction as researchers eventually, unless we're far too narrow-minded and dogmatic, frankly, in our thinking process. Like many of us in this space, I started off thinking that what I'd seen on Vancouver Island in September 2024 was a large bipedal undiscovered ape. And I still think there are solid arguments to be made why it's theoretically possible and even probable that a creature like that, with far above average intelligence compared to known great apes, could be elusive enough, small enough in population, given the 2.1 billion acres of forest in North America alone, to evade official detection. But I don't think that's what's happening. I do think I have been reluctantly pushed towards the conclusion that there is more going on here than a simple undiscovered ape, than a gorilla that walks on two legs. Based on my own experiences and the experiences of others, I think it's pretty undeniable. Now, you start talking that way, and people who followed you initially because they considered you a logical person, well, they might just walk the other way. But is it logical to ignore vast segments of the body of eyewitness accounts simply because they don't fit in our preconceived category of simple wildlife? I don't think so.
I think part of the problem that we have is mainstream logic.
Agreed.
I think mainstream logic blocks a lot of these potential answers. And I'm going to be honest with you, with 3.5 minutes to go before we go to break, I'm actually kind of glad, Robert. I'm glad that we have this logic, because I don't know. I've watched the paranormal scene go to hell. I've watched the UFO scene now go to hell. I don't want the Bigfoot and cryptid scene to go to hell. You know what I'm saying? I like the fact that we are unique. I like the fact that we're stupid enough to go into a forest where we are nowhere close to being the apex predator, and going to look for a creature that outweighs us on average by probably 250, 300 pounds, outsizes us by about, on average, 2 to 4 feet, and literally could rip our arms off and beat us to death with it. I want that rush, man. I want that adrenaline. I want that feeling of excitement that, you're in the middle of the sticks and you're looking around, you can't see anything, but there's some sort of skunky smell around, and it just happens to be emanating everywhere. That's a cool,
agreed,
man.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. I want that as well. I think most of us do on some level, who consider ourselves investigators of this phenomenon. It's all about the truth, but also that fascination behind the truth. I mean, 2 + 2 is 4 is truth, but I don't find it nearly as exciting as chasing Sasquatch.
We got 2 minutes to go. I want to question you on this. What does your wife think? Does she just roll
the phenomenon in general, or about my experience?
Does she just roll her eyes at you? There he goes. There's Robert going into the forest again. Or is she an active, willing participant at all?
Well, she knows what I saw was real. She knows these beings are real. I think there are certainly times when she has a potentially valid concern about my level of obsession with this, as any good wife would. But she knows that I'm in this for the long haul, that I'm dedicated to discovering the truth, and she's been a wonderful support to me throughout that process. Happy for me to go on expeditions and potentially risk my life. She's probably not too happy about that part, but tolerant, willing, because she knows that I've got this in my blood. And once you get it in your blood, it's hard to get it out again, even when you've had multiple terrifying sightings.
Okay, so do you go out alone, or do you have a partner or a team that you go out with?
I don't have a set team. I had my initial encounter alone. Of course, I wasn't going out specifically to see Sasquatch. I was walking into the woods that day to figure out what the weirdness was that I had been warned about in that area. It wasn't specific at that point. My second encounter, I was with a team of people in British Columbia, actually, where you are, and my upcoming expeditions, I have 2 of them planned for the coming months. Those will also be with a team of 3 or 4 other gentlemen. In early May, I'll be going out with Survivor Man, Les Stroud,
nice,
here in Ontario, and a few others. And then in August, I'll be going out with a different team. So lots of team building hunting happening.
We're going to go to break here on Spaced Out Radio. When we return, what started it off for Robert, his amazing Bigfoot encounters. All right, we are clear. Just remember, our audience can hear us. Great start, by the way. Great
thank
start.
you. No, it's fun. As I said, I'm very glad to be here.
Yeah, this is fun. How'd you get together with Les Stroud?
Well, funny story. I've always been a fan of Survivor Man, and more recently, his Survivor Man Bigfoot series on his YouTube channel. And I had thought in the back of my mind as my own channel grew that collaborating with him at some point, when my audience gets to a certain size that he might consider worth his time, that would be a nice thing. But lo and behold, he emailed me out of the blue several months ago. Turns out he'd been watching my stuff and was a fan of my work and wanted to head out into the field with me to collaborate, to produce content for both of our platforms together. And he even asked me to be involved in his upcoming Sasquatch documentary. I believe the title is The Question of Bigfoot. Currently under production. He asked if he could consult me on that as far as knowledge around Bigfoot, and also potentially be an interviewee in the film itself. So pretty exciting stuff. And needless to say, I was a little starstruck, but also honored and excited to get to collaborate with a gentleman like Les.
Good for you. I'm proud of you for that. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I want to ask you about your Vancouver Island encounter, but I got to wait here. I have to wait. I'm holding off on this because we're in the break and then the radio audience can't hear it. So I have to wait for that one. It kind of pisses me off because I got a couple questions about that. I lived on Vancouver Island for 2 years.
Oh, well, whereabouts on the island?
I was in Nanaimo, Parksville, okay, but I did a lot of traveling to Port Alberni because I coached hockey over there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful island. We really fell in love with it, my wife and daughter and I. In fact, we're going to be returning again for the first time since my encounter, probably next fall, which will be 2 years since my encounter. I find it's nicest out there. Not that I've been more than the once, but from what I hear from friends who live out there, it's nicest in the early fall when it's not too hot and humid, when you can still enjoy the beach. Kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I love visiting the island. I hated every day I lived there.
Really? Can I ask why?
I felt trapped. Like that ferry boat was, you know, when you're on an island, I just felt really trapped. So I didn't enjoy it. And trust me, the Vancouver Island, if you've never been to Vancouver Island, it is literally one of nature's masterpieces. It 100%. Really, it doesn't matter whether you're on the inner side of the island where I lived or the outer side of the island, that next stop, Japan, right? It is gorgeous there from top to bottom. But I never was comfortable living there.
Well, to each their own. I can understand why after a while it might feel that way. The island I live on, Manitoulin, we connect to the mainland by a rotating bridge, so that probably alleviates that potential anxiety for me, thankfully.
We have the ferret in our chat room who lives on the island as well. So, all right. Hillbilly Herb says Manitoulin Island is amazing. We got about 1 minute here. Thank you tonight to T-Bone ×2, Forrest Louie, and Kitty Cattywhack for the super chats tonight. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Oh, you're in Comox Valley. Ferret, I will be there May 22nd through 24th for there's a Bigfoot conference happening in Comox Valley. I will be there speaking. It's a 3-day event. I'll be there speaking. I'm going to put more information up about that very, very soon. So, yeah, I got to prepare for that. I do. I got to prepare for that. All right. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, everybody. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can get great stuff like I'm wearing right now. There's my Flight 21 right there. Go get it today. Here we go. We are into the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. It's Bigfoot all night long. My name is Dave Scott. We're so glad to have you here as we have Robert Maxwell standing in the batter's box, waiting to talk about his incredible stories of Sasquatch. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Robert Maxwell, good to have you back, my friend. And I want to know, 2 encounters in the last year and a half. This has created a major interest for you in dedicating your life now to learning about Sasquatch. You have a very successful YouTube channel called Cabin in the Woods. And yes, I personally am a subscriber on your channel. Love your content. Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
These videos. So cheers to you for that. But let's get into it. Tell us how this began.
So I was not the sort of person who was a hardcore Bigfoot skeptic. I know a lot of encounters start that way. Oh, I didn't believe in Bigfoot and then I saw one. That wasn't me. I had kind of a healthy open-mindedness and even interest in Bigfoot type mysteries in general. UFOs, the paranormal, that sort of thing. I was generally interested, not fervently obsessed, but generally interested and open to those sorts of things. But it certainly wasn't on my main life radar until this trip to Vancouver Island in September 2024. My wife and daughter and I wanted to see the West Coast. We had some friends who had visited Vancouver Island, recommended it to us. So my wife booked us a cottage, an Airbnb on the southern tip of the island, a village called Shirley, which you may know, Dave, since you lived there. It's not a big place, lots of forest, one main road going through. And for the most part, it was a normal vacation until near the end. My wife and daughter and I were on a remote beach there. There were a lot of beaches in that area. That's one reason we chose this particular village. There were at least half a dozen nice beaches of different character within a short drive of our cottage. So near the end, I think 3 or 4 days from the end of our 10-day vacation, we were on this beach, and it just so happened we were the only people there. It was our second or third visit to this beach. It had become one of our favorites. It wasn't a manicured sand beach. It was a typical West Coast, rugged, wild, unkempt sort of beach. Cobblestone shore and great big driftwood logs and a high cliff topped with sloping forest and foliage at our backs. And we were just walking along, enjoying the ocean. My daughter and I decided to climb up this one particular driftwood log, kind of a dried up cedar root ball with a piece of a log that had washed up who knows how long ago. And we were doing that when all of a sudden the silence was shattered by a pebble striking this log with incredible velocity about 12 inches from my daughter's head, give or take. She was 7 at the time. And we both noticed it. This pebble made this echoing crack as it struck this wood and rolled down. And I picked it up. It was about 1 inch in diameter, almost perfectly round, white quartz pebble. And I instantly knew it had been thrown because, number one, it didn't fall straight down. It came at us from an angle. And number two, gravity wouldn't have been able to produce that kind of velocity, even if it had fallen straight down. But because of where it hit and how hard it hit, I could tell instantly it had been thrown, and thrown hard, almost like it had been shot out of a slingshot or something. I traced where I thought it had come from, and best I could tell, it was thrown from this 30 or 40 foot cliff behind us, maybe 50 feet from the water's edge, just above our heads, continuing along this beach. And again, this cliff was covered in this thick foliage, but the surface of it, prior to the thick foliage, was very steep and slick with the spray of the surf. So I didn't see any way that a person could have physically gotten up there. They would have basically had to be Spider-Man, it seemed to me. And yet it was pretty clear to me that that's where this rock had come from. Somehow up on top of this cliff in this impossible thick foliage. So being a protective father and assuming initially that it had been people, probably drunken teenagers or something, I figured, I started whipping stones up there myself to try to teach them a lesson, or at least flush them out so I could give them a good tongue lashing, whoever it was. But nothing happened. I threw maybe 5 or 6 stones up there in this shotgun pattern, and no sounds, no movement, no yelling in pain. But the whole thing left me with a weird feeling. Couldn't understand it, and the longer I thought about it, the more unsettled I got. Just how hard this stone hit, that's the thing that got me. Like, really, really hard and dangerously close to my child. So we didn't stick around on this beach much longer after that. We drove back to our cottage, and I tried to put it out of my mind, but the stone throw incident got me thinking back to a conversation I'd had with the gentleman who rented our cottage to us on the second day. This was near the end of our vacation. This rock was thrown, but much earlier in the trip, I had run into the gentleman who was the cottage owner where we were staying. He and his wife lived on the same property, just across the yard, basically. Thick forest on basically all sides. And I noticed he was wearing a Bigfoot t-shirt during this initial conversation. So struck up a conversation because, again, I'd kind of had a casual interest in that sort of thing. And he got kind of uncomfortable when I asked him if he'd seen anything or had any sightings been told about in his area. He didn't seem to want to talk about it, looking down and shifting from one foot to the other. And so I didn't press him too much, but he did share that he'd had some of his animals. This gentleman kept chickens and goats. Some of them had disappeared under weird conditions. Like one time he'd caught a bear come in from the forest, torn down the 5-foot fence and taken some chickens. Another time a mountain lion had jumped over the fence and was in the process of dragging one of his poor miniature goats back over the fence into the woods. Both times those invasions left a massive mess, blood and feathers and damaged fences. But he also told me that there had been 1 or 2 other times where he'd gotten up in the morning, gone out to feed the animals, and there was just one less animal, one fewer goat or chicken, and no signs of disturbance that time, which bears or mountain lions, he figured, they always leave plenty of signs. So he did tell me that much, but he didn't really want to say much more, except that he kind of gave me this warning He said, if you go walking in those woods there across the road, keep your wits about you. And then, the conversation kind of trailed off, and I didn't think much of it at the time. This was on like day 2 of the trip. Right. I just figured he meant bears and mountain lions, which of course there's plenty of both on Vancouver Island, as you know, Dave. And
yes.
So I thought, I'll keep my wits about me. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I've grown up in the woods. I know what's out there. It turns out I would break my promise to myself to not do anything stupid. So fast forward maybe a week later, and this stone throwing incident happened at this unkempt, wild sort of beach, just a quarter mile or so up the road from this cottage, and in the same patch of woods that the gentleman had warned me about. If you go walking in there, keep your wits about you, be careful. So the stone throw happened, and that got me thinking back to his warning, and my curiosity just flared right up. I've always been a naturally curious person, never really been able to turn that off. And maybe that's a bad thing, but I wasn't able to turn it off in this instance. So the combination of that weird conversation and the rock throw brought me to the decision that I was going to take a walk in those woods and see what the heck this guy was talking about. Maybe I'd see a bear, and then I knew what to do if I saw a black bear. I figured I would be okay if I saw a mountain lion, although in hindsight, that was pretty stupid. Didn't have a weapon with me or anything. So I did. I took a walk in the woods. The only issue was, by the time I came to that decision, it was already night, which made it an even dumber decision. But I did it anyway. Curiosity was just running too strong. Only had my phone flashlight, which I really, in hindsight, I really should have done things differently. But I took a walk across this road into these thick woods, and you know how the woods are on Vancouver Island, very thick and tangled, old growth trees, lots of old man's beard lichen hanging from the branches. And I wasn't very far into the woods when the first of what I call the steps to my encounter took place. And I didn't see anything at first. It was a sound, actually. I was maybe 100 yards, maybe less, into the bush. I was very slow going, stepping over roots and rocks, trying not to trip in the dark, and turning around every so often, try to keep the twinkling lights from our cottage visible, although that was getting harder and harder with the foliage. And I had just stopped to kind of get my bearings when I heard this noise. As a guess, maybe it was about 50 yards ahead of me, although it's hard to tell with just a noise in the dark.
Right.
And it was like the sound of a deep sort of throat clearing noise, like a very large man was clearing his throat. That's kind of how it struck me at the time. It kind of sounds bear-like in the recording I got. I was actually filming on my phone at the time because I thought I might make just a sort of vlog video of our entire trip, including this walk into the woods. I wasn't expecting anything to happen. I was just filming myself walking and talking, basically, as I had been for the entire trip. But I heard this noise and immediately just froze. What was that? And my first thought was bear, quite honestly. Yes. Like it sounded like a large man clearing his throat, but what large man is going to be clearing his throat at 10 o'clock at night in the middle of the woods? So I figure it's got to be a bear. Time to leave. But before I could really get my bearings and make sure I wasn't going to trip on a root and fall flat on my face, just a few seconds after that grunt or growl or whatever it was, I heard a second noise, and it sounded like it came from the same spot. And the second noise wasn't from a creature. It was a woody type of noise, like the fibers in a tree being twisted or creaking or something. Reminded me a lot of some of the sounds I heard growing up when I'm felling trees and splitting firewood with my dad. Sometimes when a tree would fall, it would land on a branch and after it initially fell, if the branch couldn't quite take the weight, you'd hear it go like creaking as the branch failed, basically. And this reminded me of that. It was like creaking wood fibers, like a tree was being broken or a branch was being twisted or something. So I heard those two sounds coming from the woods ahead of me. Sounded like they were coming from the same area, and I thought probably best to get out of here now. I didn't know, what it was. I wasn't thinking. If I had a thought, it was still likely bear. I know bears can rear up and push on trees, and I kind of had a half-baked idea that's what was going on, but heart was racing, hair was prickling up a little bit on the back of my neck, so got out of there as fast as I could. Wasn't very quick, even though I felt like I was rushing, but hitting a lot of branches and bushes, and my legs were all scratched up by the time I got out of there.
Were you on a
And
were you on a regular walking path or a deer trail, or were you just bushwhacking?
Completely bushwhacking. There were no trails, no game trails or walking paths of any kind in this patch of woods. I basically just crossed the road from where our cottage was, this small rural road, and just walked straight into the forest. Something I've done, thousands of times here in Ontario. I'm used to branches hitting me in the face, so I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to see why this guy gave me this cryptic warning about these woods that had also produced the bizarre rock throw earlier that day. But those two sounds convinced me that there was something bigger than me in that area. So I rushed back into the cabin and calmed down as best I could, drank some water, and told my wife, and I think she initially thought I was joking, but then she saw my face was pale, and she was surprised, I think, because after I told her, I called my father back in Ontario and unloaded the whole thing on him. And, I don't normally call up my dad out of the blue like that. So I think she noticed that, and she's like, okay, he's not pulling my leg. But by the next day, the fear had receded and my curiosity had rekindled, because now I had things stacking up, and it was just seeming more and more like something was going on there. I still logically thought it was probably a bear that I had heard the previous night, but I don't know, there was something about that grunt noise that didn't sound fully bear-like to me. We have black bears here on our property in Ontario, and I've heard most sounds they make at one time or another, and it was similar, kind of, but it didn't sound fully bear to me. So in the light of day, beautiful sunny day, the next day, I decided to go back and see if I could see anything. I wanted to try to maybe find the spot where these two sounds had emanated, and maybe I'd see bear claw marks on a tree. That's kind of what I figured, and rule out that it was anything more mysterious, because I did kind of have a notion that could it have been Bigfoot? I don't know. I thought probably not, but it was weird, to say the least. So about 2:00 the next afternoon, I took another walk, followed the same path I had the previous night. It was easier going, of course, because it was lighter, and I didn't see anything at first. Walk a little further, and then I did see something, and it wasn't a creature, at least not right away. It was a fallen tree, and it was a fairly freshly fallen tree, I could tell. It was a coniferous tree, fresh green needles still on it, about 40 feet long, I'd say. And I thought, that looks like it's about where that creaking wood noise and the growl that came before happened last night. Would it just be a coincidence that there's this one random fallen tree, freshly fallen down by the looks of it, in roughly the spot where I'd heard that, and no other fallen trees, just thick, upright, healthy, living trees everywhere else except for this one tree? So I decided I was going to go take a closer look, see if first of all, if it had been cut with a chainsaw, because where I spotted it, I couldn't see the bottom. I could just see like the bulk of the trunk and the foliage. But obviously that would settle the mystery pretty quick if if I saw a man-made cut at the bottom of this thing. Or I also knew from living in the country, it could be root rot or insect damage, or a downburst of wind might have just ripped up a healthy tree. That sort of thing happens. And I didn't want to jump to any conclusions, but I didn't get the chance to get up close to this tree and take a look, because pretty much as I took my first step towards it, and I was still, I don't know, 20 yards away from the tree at this point, I caught this flash of movement further into the bush than the tree was and a bit to the right. And I kind of saw it out of my peripheral. It was something shifting a little bit. Not a huge movement, but noticeable. Caught my attention. So I jerked my head and looked in that direction beyond this fallen tree. And partially obscured by branches and foliage and lichen and things was this massive black shape. It was every bit of 8 feet tall, as a guess. Probably half that in width. And it wasn't the right shape for a bear standing on its hind legs. It was far too big to be a black bear. I know there are reportedly a few grizzlies on Vancouver Island. They're not supposed to be there, but some of them are on the northern tip, and some people say they've spread lower. But even a grizzly, this thing, it just looked too wide and bulky to be a grizzly bear. And whether it's a black bear or a grizzly, which is what I was trying to tell myself it was, but when they stand up, they're kind of pear-shaped. They have a great big bottom and midsection, but they kind of get narrower towards the shoulders. I mean, not skinny or narrow by any means, but narrower as you go up on a bear. But this didn't do that. It was massive and bulky right up to the top. And the weird thing about it was it didn't look like a recognizable life form, if that makes sense. Like, I was trying to pick out features. I was probably 60, 70, maybe 80 yards away from it. And I saw what looked like it could have been a head. And I thought I saw the shoulders and the torso, but it was obscured enough that it wasn't like super obvious. More than anything, it just kind of looked like a big black bulk. And I probably wouldn't have thought it was anything living if I hadn't just seen it move. It sort of struck me more as a big root ball. To the west of our cabin here, there's a patch of woods near a lake where a bunch of cedars all in a row, old growth cedars, because of the wet, spongy soil not being stable enough for them, they've all tipped over, a whole row of them. And they pull a lot of dirt and foliage with them. We call it Root Ball Road. My daughter and I like to go there. And this thing that I saw on Vancouver Island, it reminded me of one of those root balls from this area near our house. It looked like a big, bulky patch of dark dirt, but it had moved. And that was the problem. So I'm staring at this thing, and I whip up my phone after the initial shock wore off, although it never really wore off, but I got a few seconds of footage, like 18 or 20 seconds of footage or something. And as I stood there trying to figure out what I was looking at, this dread kind of cropped up. Like, I was startled initially, had that similar response to what I felt when I've looked at bears before as they've trundled along our back field while I was taking a walk. But as I stood there for longer and the seconds ticked by, that feeling grew into something more profound than just a healthy respect for a passing bear. And I'm not sure how to describe it any better than that, other than I knew
you knew that you weren't the only one there at that time. I'm going to get you to hold on right there, Robert. We're going to finish your story when we come back and your other encounter that you've had. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. Robert Maxwell has a popular YouTube channel called Cabin in the Woods. Over 137,000 subscribers. I'm one of them. His videos on Sasquatch are great. He takes deep dives, people. I like him. And he's a great communicator and a fantastic storyteller. We'll have more right after this. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, buddy. We're going to take a quick break here. I'm going to put you in the green room, and I'll be right back. Okay.
Sounds good.
About 5 minutes. This is a great show. These are the encounter stories that I love. Absolutely loving this. All right. I am back. Let's clear that out. I'm going to be setting the times for our speakers here very, very soon. So make sure if you're coming, you go check out cariboucon.com. It's going to be pretty awesome. All right, let's bring Robert back in. There you are. How you doing, buddy?
Great. How are you?
Doing fine so far?
Oh, yeah. This is awesome.
Great. All right. Quickly here. Hi, Bombshell Bomber. How are you? And where are we here? Let's see. Fap Nuts, how you doing? Always so complimentary. Hi, Dave. Sorry to say, but you look horrible. So it ain't that bad. I love you, buddy. Absolutely love you. My harshest critic. Thank you tonight to our super chatters, T-Bone ×2, Erica, Forrest Louie, Necessary Dialogue, and Kitty Cattywhack. We really appreciate it. And we're going to get going here in about 14 seconds. So sit back, relax. Hi there, Claudette. How you doing? And here we go, everybody, in 4 seconds. Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Abodiment. Abodiment is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's bring in our guest, Robert Maxwell, tonight. An incredible encounter with Sasquatch he's telling us about here. He's got a great YouTube channel called Cabin in the Woods. 137,000 subscribers tuning in to see what his adventures lead to next. Robert, thank you so much for being here. Right before the break, you were talking about how fearful you were, getting that feeling that you were being watched in the forest, and all of a sudden that human instinct kicked in, that maybe it was time to head back.
Yes. So basically, after my sighting, after I caught this flash of movement, realized it had been this massive, bulky black shape that had done the moving, a shape too big and wrongly proportioned for any animal I'd ever seen, or a person for that matter. I decided it was time to beat a hasty retreat, so I did. And people have asked me time and time again, you say you're a Bigfoot researcher, why did you run away? Well, I wasn't a Bigfoot researcher then. That's the event that led me to become one. And I still don't regret running away because, again, I just had this very strong sense that, and it was more than just the fear of a large predator. I'm not sure I can explain it better than that, but it was the sense that a will stronger than mine wants me to leave. So I did. And again, rushed into the cottage we were renting, told my wife breathlessly all about it. And again, I think she initially thought I was pulling her leg, but then I showed her the footage and she actually noticed some things as we played it back over and over again. As I tried to calm down, she noticed some details in it that I hadn't seen at the time in person. Shortly prior, we zoomed in on the footage and you could kind of see what looked like an arm and a hand hanging down beside the main bulk of this thing's body, and it almost looked like it was scratching its thigh with its hand. Can't be sure because you zoom in that far and it gets blurry, but One thing was certain to me. I had seen something massive, black, and upright standing in those woods that willed me to leave. So I just kind of tried to sit with that for a while and figure out and understand what it was. And, I almost talked myself out of the movement I had seen. I tried to tell myself it was a root ball. It looks like those root balls near your house. That's what it was. The movement that had caught my attention, I didn't get that part on camera. I did get this hand thing moving on camera when you zoomed in, but like I said, it was kind of blurry, and I was trying to talk myself out of it. I was trying to convince myself that hand movement was actually just a leaf or a branch or something. Didn't really look like that, but it was a hard thing to swallow. And I wasn't initially ready for the conclusion that I ultimately landed on, which is that it was Sasquatch. I made one more trip into the woods before we left after our vacation. My dad actually encouraged me to take a look and see if this creature had left any evidence behind. And initially I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going back there, but I think, call it a blessing or a curse, but my curiosity has always been stronger than fear. So eventually, by the time the next day rolled around, the last full day we would be on Vancouver Island, the curiosity had rekindled enough that I thought, well, one more quick walk over there won't hurt. If I see this being again, I'll just get out of there. I'm ready now. I know I saw something. But I was also still partially under the belief that it may have been a root ball, because I had repeated that to myself over and over again that night. So I took one more walk. I knew it was my last chance to do so, and I knew that if I had seen something that shouldn't have been there, I'd be kicking myself the rest of my life if I could have gotten, a piece of hair off the ground, or at least a photo of a footprint or something. And my dad's encouragement kind of gave me that extra push I needed, coupled with my curiosity. So I took one more walk, the same path, and immediately as I get to that little area where I had been the day before, I'm scanning the trees, and I look exactly where the being had been the day before. And that's when my stomach kind of dropped, because I knew it wasn't a root ball at that point, because it wasn't there. There was no footpaths, like I said, no game trails, no evidence of loggers or anything. It was just an untouched patch of woods. So if it had been a root ball and there had been a logging road or something, I could see a logging crew potentially cutting it up and dragging it out of the way to make room for their equipment. But there was nothing like that, no disturbance. It was just a massive hulking black shape that was there the day before, and now it was gone. So I didn't have that self-deception to cling to anymore, that it was just a root ball and I had imagined the bit of movement. So after checking and double checking and triple checking in all directions to see if maybe it was somewhere else, looking at me from behind a tree, didn't see anything. I thought it was still probably nearby, and I was extremely wary, but I thought, I've braved this patch of woods one more time. I will at least take a closer look at that fallen tree that I initially had seen. So I walked up to the fallen tree, slowly, cautiously, looking side to side every time, like the first time you drive in heavy traffic after you get your license. You're checking your blind spot all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I get up to this tree, and it becomes very clear that it didn't fall naturally. At least the balance of probability struck me that it couldn't have fallen naturally. Number one, It had not been cut. There was no evidence of a chainsaw or an axe or anything like that. Number two, its roots were clearly visible, as if it had been pulled from the soil. And number three, in poking it and kicking it, taking a good hard look at the roots, rapping on them with my knuckles, this wood was not rotten. It wasn't bug damaged. It didn't have carpenter ants all through it like some trees that have fallen down along my driveway here in Ontario. It was a sound tree, fresh green needles on it, 40 feet tall, pushed over like it was nothing. And it was pushed over very close to where this being had been the day before. And what's more, it was pushed over in what I figure was probably the spot where I'd heard that creaking wood fiber sort of noise the night prior to that. So I'm trying not to jump to conclusions at this point, but the pieces are seeming to fit. I think that this being, the being I had seen the previous day, my second trip into those woods, had made the noise, the grunt or growl or whatever it was, and pushed this tree right over until its roots tore out of the ground. That's what I think happened. There was also a second tree that I hadn't seen the previous day because it was lying almost perfectly parallel with the first fallen tree, concealed by that fresh green foliage. Only when I got right up to the first uprooted tree did I see that there was a second tree underneath it. This one was a birch, similar height to the coniferous tree. May have been a spruce, that first tree, and the second tree was a birch lying directly under the first tree. Looked like it had been fallen for a while longer, though. The leaves, although they were still on the branches, they were a little bit brown and shriveled. But the really strange part was that the bottom of the trunk of this birch, which was almost exactly where the uprooted and visible roots of the coniferous tree were, the two trees were lying almost one on top of the other. The bottom of this birch had been splintered like matchwood. It too had no signs of cuts or any man-made intervention. It looked like it had just been snapped, but it was a good 8 inches in diameter, and an 8-inch birch tree. It's not a lot of things in nature that can snap something like that. That's a strong piece of wood. But unlike the coniferous tree on top of it, the birch didn't have any visible roots. In fact, I walked around, still scanning the tree line for this creature because I still thought it was nearby. It was still on edge, heart rate probably close to twice what it normally should be the whole time. But I'm looking around and I'm trying to find a corresponding splintered stump in the ground for this birch. And there wasn't anything. In fact, there were no birch trees of any kind, broken or otherwise, in the area. It was mostly coniferous, maybe a few poplars, but no birch, except for this one 8-inch diameter, 30 to 40 foot tall, snapped off, splintered birch tree hidden underneath this spruce tree. So, the way I see it, something had to drag it there because there was no stump. And the bush around it was so thick, I didn't see how that was possible. So it just didn't make any sense to me, except that somehow the creature I'd seen the day before was responsible. And I didn't see anything else, basically. I looked close to where I thought the creature was. Heart rate started to go up higher and higher, and I was fighting back panic as I got closer to the spot, but I didn't see any footprints where it had been standing or any tufts of hair stuck in knots of bark on trees or anything like that. So after getting some video footage of these two fallen trees that I figure were pretty suspicious, fairly telling, I left the woods, and the next day we flew home. And what I was left with was that I had seen what people call Bigfoot, because nothing else fit as far as I could tell. So I think one of these creatures threw the rock at my daughter. I think the weirdness, the wariness that the owner of our rental cottage tried to instill in me, warning me about the woods, I think he knew more than he said. And that set me down the road of this research, because I figure if it was Bigfoot, and again, I felt nothing else fit, I had to understand it. I wanted to get to the truth of, what are these beings, and how does it make sense that they're here? And I've been on that path ever since.
Let me ask you a couple questions here for our audience just tuning in. You're talking about this encounter that you had on Vancouver Island. Whereabouts on the island was it?
This was on the southern tip of the island, pretty close to the bottom. When you look at it on the map, a small village called Shirley.
Yeah, it's not an area where you would expect that because of the population at the southern tip of the island. So that's very interesting. Like the minute you start going up the highway towards, eventually you get to, Duncan and Couch and Valley, there's a lot of sightings in those areas as well as at the northern part of the island. And actually, Dr. John Bindernagel used to believe that, the Sasquatch used to swim between the islands, between the mainland and the islands in between two Vancouver Islands. So it was very, very interesting that it's happening that low on the island. I mean, when you're going through the forest, I know you were guided by your curiosity, but at some point, did you realize the dangers you were in by doing that?
Well, I realized the dangers right off the bat, to be honest. I will be the first to admit it was a stupid thing to do. I mean, I know better. I was raised in the woods, and I know better than to walk into a patch of forest you don't know unarmed. And yet I did it because, again, my driving characteristic in life has always been my curiosity. And I figured, rather arrogantly in hindsight, that I knew what to do well enough to scare off a black bear, which is the thing I thought I'd probably see if I came across anything. And a mountain lion, well, they usually attack from behind and often from up in a tree, and I figured it would probably be a quick death.
Yeah. At one of my spots, we actually have a resident mountain lion there. I had seen her our first night investigating, literally about 2.5 minutes after we put our pointy sticks back in their cases and in the vehicle. That's when I saw her run across a trail about 40 feet from us, 50 feet from us. And then I got beautiful pictures on my trail cams from her. So they are out there and they are amazingly camouflaged in the forest. Were there any footprints
100%.
around? Was there any dirt being dug up around the trees?
So not around the trees themselves, other than the disturbance around the roots of the first tree I spotted, the coniferous tree. That had obviously been uprooted from where it had grown. That was clear. There was still dirt clods on the roots themselves. But I did see something just prior to my sighting and just prior to spotting the tree on I guess my second trip into these woods. So not the nighttime one where I heard the noises, but the next day where I was just about to see the creature. But before I saw it, I didn't mention this part before, there was one point in this, 200-yard walk, whatever it wasn't very far, where there was what looked like a bit of a game trail. It certainly wasn't a man-made opening or clearing. It was just a narrow sort of path, I noticed, because the walking got easier for a little while. And smack dab in the center of this slightly easier, more clear area to walk, there was a bit of disturbed dirt. I think in hindsight, it may have been a footprint, but to this day, I'm not 100% sure because it certainly wasn't clear with any distinct toe marks or anything like that. What it was, I got some footage of this too. It's on my YouTube channel. It was a roughly rectangular impression in the forest floor, about 3 inches deep, and at least 50% longer than my foot.
Right.
So it was roughly the right shape, but there was only one of them. That was the weird thing. And I know that that's something we can talk about more, I'm sure, because as I learned since then, Sasquatch do have a habit of leaving footprints that bizarrely stop, where if we're dealing with a strictly biological entity and nothing more, it should be impossible for those prints to not continue. And yet this happens. It's reported repeatedly. I didn't know anything about that at that time. I just thought, well, that's weird. There's a rectangular impression, looks kind of like a foot in the middle of this game trail, and there's only one, and it's awfully deep. And I'm 260 pounds. I tried to jump up and down next to it, see if I could make a similarly deep impression. I couldn't even make a scratch in the surface. It was pretty hard-packed soil with forest litter on top of it and dried needles and leaves and whatnot. But I didn't immediately think it was a footprint, and again, to this day, I'm not sure. But shortly after that, I saw the fallen tree, and then I saw the creature.
The path that this has taken you on, where it is now your life's mantra to try and figure out what this creature is. When you look at it overall, what do you think Sasquatch is?
It's a great question. I figured you would ask it, and it's a difficult one because, as I'm sure many researchers would agree, the deeper you dig, the less clear in some ways things become. So here's what I'm convinced of thus far. Number one, these beings exist and they do have physical form. They absolutely do leave footprints. They leave hair samples. DNA samples have been analyzed. They move trees. They knock on tree trunks. They break trees. I've witnessed all of these things personally in one form or another. And I believe the evidence for these physical interactions is quite compelling. But they're also more than just physical, I have come to believe. What the more is exactly, I'm still working that out. I believe that there is a connection to quantum physics in a way that we don't fully understand. I believe that there may well be a connection to UAPs and extraterrestrial life in some form. And I believe rolled into that mix somewhere, there may well also be a spiritual connection of some sort. Now, how all of those abilities and characteristics can exist in one undiscovered being that only shows up in blurry video every few years, I don't know yet. But I do know, again, that they exist, that they are more than just an undiscovered animal, although they are certainly physical. And I believe that they have more in common with personhood than with animals.
And on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because hard to believe we're already through 90 minutes with you tonight. Robert Maxwell, he's got a great YouTube channel dedicated to Sasquatch called Cabin in the Woods. I highly suggest you go in there and hit subscribe, figure out what he's doing, especially when he's crossing rapid rivers. Oh, man, you're braver than I am, my friend. Braver than I am. But you know what? We're all looking for Sasquatch, and we got more coming up on this great topic on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. Flying on by, my friend. Flying on by.
Yeah, I guess we got a few more things we should try to hit before we're done.
What do you want to hit?
Well, whatever you like, but you had mentioned the Patterson film. That's kind of big in the news right now. We should probably tackle that one, but I'll leave it to you. Whatever you think
did you want to
is
get to your
needed.
second encounter?
Yeah, we can talk about the second encounter. Absolutely, that one is quicker to tell. So
why don't we give a brief 10-minute version of your second encounter, then we'll get to Patterson Gimlin.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that'll eat up the time. It'll go really quick. Really quick.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. I really appreciate, again, you having me on.
Deadfish, how you doing? Nice to see you again. Yeah, we're going to do this again.
I'm here for it.
I'm going to study your channel a little bit more. How much snow you guys got there still?
Too much. It's been a very heavy winter for snow here in Ontario. I think we've probably got at least a couple feet still on the ground, although it is slowly melting every day, thankfully.
Yeah, we're pretty much done with the heavy snow now. We get, like yesterday morning, we had flurries, but by the time the afternoon comes around, it's melted away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good when it doesn't last, when it's already April.
Truth. Deborah Rooney, how are you? I am wearing pants, Deb. Don't get too excited. I am wearing pants. But yeah, I'm going to try on Sunday, maybe Friday, because it's Good Friday. I may try on Friday or Sunday to get to one of my spots.
Well, I'll look forward to hearing how it goes.
Oh, dude, it's a hell of a drive to get out there because, I mean, on the gravel roads, you're only doing 35K, maybe 40K.
Yep.
So when you're driving in there, you have to be. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get in there. That's if we can make it through the gully. Because the easy part is driving to the gully. The hard part is how much snow is in the gully, and more so coming out of the gully.
Well, you got four-wheel drive and snow tires, I'm sure.
Oh, I've got a lifted Jeep.
Oh, well, you should be all right then.
I'm more worried about the ice. I'm not worried.
That's fair.
No, it's the ice that because it's in a crevasse. So you come down this side. The grade is probably at about 7%.
Oh yeah, pretty serious.
Okay. And then going up is probably at about an 8 or 9%. Like when you're going up the hill, you come out of the gully, there's a little creek that usually forms a puddle in there. Then you come up the hill, and that one's the danger part, is that part. And so if we can make it through that, we're good. I just hope that it's not icy, so we'll have to check it beforehand.
Yeah, well, as long as you can make it through that, then all you have to worry about is 9 foot tall, 800 bipedal humanoids.
Yeah, exactly. But we go in our area, we have to go in armed. We have no choice.
100%. Yeah. Well,
Grizzly
it'd
bears,
be foolish
grizzly
not
bears,
to.
black
Yeah.
bears, moose, cougars, wolf packs. We're coming back in 3 seconds, my friend. Let's kick off the second half of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We really appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to bring in our guest, Robert Maxwell. We have until the top of the hour. And you have another encounter, Robert, with your daughter, your second sighting. This is brand new to you. Not many people have one encounter in their lifetime, let alone two in the span of a year and a half.
Yes. So, yeah, the second encounter, it actually didn't involve my daughter. I
thought it did. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, the first encounter involved her indirectly because of the stone throw, but this second encounter, I was specifically on expedition looking for Sasquatch. I was with a small group of gentlemen, researchers. One of them was the well-known and controversial Sasquatch character Todd Standing, and I was actually in your neck of the woods in BC. We were out there pretty remote. I think the closest town to us was Radium Hot Springs, but it wasn't super close. That was just the closest. A bunch of logging roads, lots of thick forest and mountains, typical BC beauty. And the first part of that expedition was mostly Todd showing myself and these other gentlemen Sasquatch evidence. Evidence that, to be honest, I didn't find all that impressive at first until I saw what I saw and I started putting more stock in it. The initial evidence were things like tree breaks, some rather indistinct footprints that had been somewhat washed out that I think were footprints in hindsight, but nothing with toe splay or dermal ridges. But then on the third day of the week-long expedition, I saw something that it defied the laws of physics. And this, along with a couple of other things, helped push me into the Sasquatch is more than just an animal camp. Because the movement I saw shouldn't have been possible in a conventional physical sense, no matter how agile or adapted a creature is. We were walking through some thick, rather marshy forest with a lot of deadfall in it. The other gentleman and I and Todd were on this gentle hill, and we're just kind of catching our bearings when Todd suggested that I take a little walk off on my own. I think he knew that I was going to do it anyway. And as a naturally curious person, I wouldn't be able to resist for much longer. So he said, yeah, go ahead, Robert. Take a walk down there. Shout if anything happens. I had a shotgun loaded for bear, so I felt a little more prepared than in my initial encounter. But of course, I wasn't expecting anything to actually happen. One encounter in your life, as you said, is rare enough. But something did. I was about 200 to 300 yards from the other gentleman, and it was very slow going because, like I said, every inch of this patch of forest, there were plenty of healthy trees, but at least half the trees there were deadfall, fallen down, tangled trunks everywhere. So it was more climbing than walking. So after about 20 minutes of picking my way over all this deadfall, I sat down on a log to just get my bearings and think and kind of form an opinion on the evidence I had seen thus far and if this was really worth my time. But it quickly became clear it was, because I heard some knocking sounds after not too long, coming out of the woods ahead and to my right. Couldn't tell how far away they were. Seemed pretty far, but they were very loud, very distinct. Both of them echoed. It was one right after another. Crack, crack, just like that. Later, I found out that one of the other members of that expedition heard those as well. Turns out he had been walking away from the group, kind of in a similar direction to me, although I couldn't see him at the time. But that little bit of corroboration helped me mentally afterwards, because although I was the only person to see what I saw, this guy heard the tree knocks that preceded it. So I hear these tree knocks and my heart just starts pounding out of my chest. I think this is it. Something's actually going to happen here. I hear it over there. That tree knock, clear as day. I got to get my camera ready. And the camera was this phone right here, which I had bought a special lens for that actually screws into the phone case, a little miniature telephoto lens designed for use with a phone. And I stupidly tried to thread that on so I could get a clear close-up video of if anything showed up. What I should have done, what I dearly wish I had done, is just get the phone up and not bother with the lens and start filming. Because that move of attempting to get the lens on cost me any meaningful footage. Because in about maybe 2 to 3 seconds after these tree knocks, I saw something cross my field of vision impossibly quickly. It was essentially an upright light brown blur, very similar color to the white-tailed deer I see almost every day here in northern Ontario. And that's one reason I was initially asking myself, was this a deer that I saw? Was it an elk? There are elk in those woods as well. Because it was the right color for either of those. But it couldn't have been a four-legged animal because of the shape of it. It was an upright blur, essentially. Just going to take a drink of water here. Excuse me.
Yeah, not a problem. Such an interesting story. I mean, painting the picture is beautiful.
It was moving too quickly for me to get a bead on any features. It crossed my entire field of vision in less than 2 seconds, maybe 1.5, 1 3/4 seconds, something like that. And the part that just unsettled me was the fact that it was not loping, if that makes sense. It should have been leaping up and down as it ran to clear all this tangled deadfall. There are logs everywhere, some of them 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Even me being a 6-foot tall guy, pretty long legs, I was having to sometimes sit down to swing my legs over a log or climb up a series of fallen logs like a fence. This blur, this creature that seemed to be upright and rectangular and massive, it wasn't doing that. It moved as if, for that very brief window of time, as if it was hovering, like the logs weren't even there, like it was on roller skates or traveling on a rail or something. And I didn't see how that was possible because of all the obstacles in its path. And even a mountain lion, as agile as they are, they'd be jumping over logs and skipping under them maybe. I also found myself wondering, could it have been a mountain lion because of the speed and the agility? But that didn't fit because of the height of the thing. And mountain lions are pretty short at the shoulder, 3 feet, sometimes less than 3 feet. This thing was tall and upright, not stretched out like a blurred moose or deer would have been. And the movement just didn't make sense, the hovering. And the other weird part was that as it ran impossibly flatly through this deadfall, so fast that it was just a brown blur. It didn't make any sounds. No
Right.
branches cracking or even trees or logs moving or being pushed out of the way. Just dead silent. The only sounds I heard came before the actual sighting. The 2 tree knocks that had warned me something's about to happen here, and something did happen. But from everything I can tell, and I've played it over and over again in my head, it shouldn't have been physically possible for it to move that way and for it to be so utterly silent. So that was it. Just,
It
you know,
is
a
weird.
couple of seconds.
It's all you get sometimes. You know, I still think that they are in control of that situation. One of the things that I want to know, because I notice you do a lot of movement through the forest and through the trees. Have you ever tried just sitting there and letting them come to you?
Yes, I have. In fact, that's kind of what I was doing before that sighting. I took that walk away from the group, but I had sat for a good 20 minutes on this log before anything happened. And I was just kind of thinking. I wasn't specifically trying to reach out mentally to Sasquatch or anything like that. But I didn't want to barge into their territory any further than I already had. I was content to just sit and think. That was my plan. And then the tree knocks interrupted that.
Our area, because it's so claustrophobic in the trees where we are, we will wander off into the paths and everything, but mostly we just sit there and let them come to us. Their curiosity just cannot keep them away. It's really kind of cool. All right, we got 12 minutes left. Our guest tonight, Robert Maxwell. We have until the top of the hour. I want to ask you, big controversy in the Bigfoot world regarding the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now,
right,
all the proponents that this film is real, people who've known Roger Patterson and Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin for years, decades. I know that Roger passed away in 1972 or something like that, but especially Bob Gimlin. They're really starting to fire back on this new documentary capturing Bigfoot that says the Patterson-Gimlin film is allegedly hoaxed. Where do you stand on this, being new to this field, yet very immersed in it?
Yeah, it's a great question. My current conclusion, which I am open to changing should more evidence present itself, is that the documentary is not the nail in the coffin on the Patterson-Gimlin film's authenticity that it is being presented as. Now, I will say that unlike a lot of Bigfoot enthusiasts, I don't have a deep emotional investment in the Patterson-Gimlin film being real. I know for a lot of people, it is the thing that got them initially interested in the subject, often decades ago, and they have this deep need for it to be real and react with, in some cases, vitriolic anger at any suggestion to the contrary. Personally, I don't see it that way. I think that emotion, beyond just a deep and healthy curiosity and sense of wonder towards the subject as a whole, but beyond that, strong emotion is detrimental to actually getting at the truth. And I think that there's a lot of clouded judgment on both sides when it comes to the Patterson film. Both proponents of authenticity and skeptics towards that particular piece of evidence are letting their emotions get the better of them. For me, it just comes down to facts and logic. And the facts and logic I'm aware of thus far, in connection with the new documentary capturing Bigfoot, that claims to present new evidence proving the Patterson film must be a hoax. Well, I'm convinced that that evidence leaves much wanting. There are certain claims made that aren't actually as ironclad as they may seem. Now, I will say, full disclosure, I have not yet seen the documentary myself, and I'm very open to changing my opinion when I do. I think that's the only reasonable, logical approach to take. But I do know with a fairly high level of detail and accuracy what the claims made in the documentary are and what the purported evidence is claiming that the film is a hoax. I know that because I have talked in great detail with a gentleman who has not only seen the evidence presented in the new documentary, but is in the documentary himself and was interviewed for it for 5 hours. Bill Munns is who I'm speaking of, a well-known figure in the Bigfoot world and a studier of the Patterson-Gimlin film for decades. Because of the conversations I've had with him and the extremely high level of detail in his answers, I'm convinced currently that the evidence put forward in the documentary is inconclusive, and I still lean towards authenticity of the Patterson film. But again, I'm open to changing my tune if a couple of specific boxes are checked by the documentary. Box number 1, if they can prove that Roger Patterson did in fact film a rehearsal, quote unquote, of the actual Patterson film. And box number 2, if it can be proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, beyond just an expert opinion, that so-called rehearsal footage that the documentary claims to have discovered and will show, that it was in fact shot in 1966, a year before the actual Patterson-Gimlin film in 67. If they can prove that rather than simply making unfounded claims, as I currently am under the impression that they do, well, then I will be the first to admit that I was wrong. I've made videos analyzing the Patterson-Gimlin film, forming the conclusion that it is authentic. And at the moment, I stand by that conclusion. But anyone can be wrong, and I encourage all researchers in this space, skeptic or believer, to be open to changing your opinions should strong evidence present itself.
I think that's a fair assessment on it. And once again, for full disclosure, not many of us have actually seen the film. I personally have not, because it is only being played right now at South by Southwest Film Festival in Texas, and there really isn't any projected release date on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or anybody for that matter. And I don't see the director, Mark, actually, with his reputation of putting out good work, I don't see him going down the path of just putting it on a YouTube channel for all to see. I mean, we'd all love that, but I don't see that actually happening. I think the big thing for me is when you have people from the outside of our field, like the director and the producer of this film, it's very difficult to believe they understand the logic of Sasquatch. They've never really put themselves, I believe, in that forum or that area before, of going through the mountains, seeing the terrain, going outside the concrete jungle into the real forests of the West Coast or in the central part of this, of Ontario or wherever in the United States. And I believe that they're looking, and I realize that they're looking evidence-based, and there is this film of, what's his name, Bill Hieronymus or something like that.
Bob Hieronymus, yeah.
Bob Hieronymus. I always butcher that name. Wearing a suit from a previous film that looked nothing like the Patterson-Gimlin film. So there is a lot. But I'm like you. I want to see it. I want to draw my own conclusion from it to see if it is going to all of a sudden make me think differently about it. Because realistically, that video is the basis of what so many of us do and so many of us have seen. If you've had a close encounter with Sasquatch, the shoulders going to no neck and just a giant head, it's phenomenal to think of. And when you see it with your own eyes, that you look at the Patterson-Gimlin film and you're like, that's it. Nothing else compares. So
Oh, 100%.
I'm very curious about it.
Yes, well, I think curiosity is the right reaction. And I find it unfortunate that so many Bigfoot enthusiasts are reacting instead of with healthy curiosity, rather with this vitriolic anger, this aggression. That's not how we move the needle on the discovery process. If the film is proven to be a hoax, it doesn't have any bearing on the realness of Sasquatch. Now, I say that, of course, as someone who has had 2 sightings. I can understand the emotional blow it could be to an enthusiast who's had no sightings, and therefore probably puts a lot more stock than I do in something like the Patterson film. But ultimately, truth is what matters. And if we're to be taken seriously as researchers, we shouldn't be afraid of a potential truth that might make us uncomfortable. That cuts both ways, and I think we all need to keep that in mind.
We're never going to appease everybody in this field. Those who have never had an encounter with the creature, or never mind just having an encounter, walking through a forest and seeing 18-inch tracks that are 7 inches, 8 inches, 9 inches wide. That's impressive as it is. You see one of those, you're already hooked on the whole thing, or you're getting the hell out of Dodge. One of the two.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't take much to realize how big these creatures are. I mean, when you were talking about birch trees earlier, at one of my locations here, there's probably a 40, 50-foot birch tree that is bent right over. And it wasn't there a couple of years ago, and yet 2 years ago we found it. Bent right over, and the tip of the tree was tucked underneath a fallen log by about 18, 20 inches.
Isn't it amazing what snow load can do?
Well, I originally thought snow load, but snow load isn't tucking the tip of the tree underneath a fallen dead log.
No,
That's
it wouldn't. And I've seen similar things, massive maple trees, 40, 50 feet long, bent in an impossible bow.
Right?
Surprising because it should have snapped, for one thing, but
Absolutely.
the second surprising element is that it's still under tension. I've seen one underneath a broken tree at an angle shaped like a capital letter A, but the top part that was broken was still attached, and this broken tree was capping this bent over maple, which was still under tremendous tension. You could pull the maple tree down, let go of it, and it would slam back upwards. Now, tell me how snow load does that.
We're still trying to figure it out, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
We're still trying to figure it out. It really doesn't make sense. But we're down to the final minute here with you, Robert, and I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show tonight and sharing your incredible experiences and knowledge. I love the fact that you don't get too high, you don't get too low. You're very even-keeled, which is probably the way you research too. Tell everybody where they can find your YouTube channel.
If you just go to YouTube and search for Cabin in the Woods Bigfoot, then my stuff will come up. If you look for only Cabin in the Woods, you might come across that well-known horror movie. That's not me, I promise. I'm not Chris Hemsworth. It's Cabin in the Woods Bigfoot. The name of the channel is Cabin in the Woods, but to find it, add a Bigfoot into the search, and that'll bring it up every time.
I appreciate you, my friend. This was a great, great time with you. Can't wait to do it again, and good luck in your search for Sasquatch here this spring and going into summer. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we have Swamp Dweller. Then Little Terry Hall will be with us for the weird news of the week. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, buddy. That was amazing. Great job tonight.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, I'm all for
I
it.
want to do it again once you and Les get done your adventure, and we can talk about that.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I'm also writing a book about Sasquatch right now. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and I've just signed a publisher contract. So maybe that's something we can throw in at some point as well, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, we can talk about it. All right, my friend, I got to run. You take care.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
We'll talk soon. Robert Maxwell, everybody. Great interview. Great interview. We'll be right back. All right, let's bring in Terrence Hall, the mustached beauty that we call him. There he is. How you doing, buddy?
Evening, boss. How you doing?
I'm good. I've been holding back a sneeze for a while.
No, that's not healthy.
Yeah, I know.
That'll make your head explode, dude.
Yeah, I had the nose tickle going on, so
Well, I would say go out and look at the sunshine, man, but it's kind of a little bit too. Well, go out and look at the full moon. Maybe it's bright enough for you.
Jeff Steve Garvey is here. He'll hit a home run for you.
I love Steve Garvey. He's such a stud, man.
Literally.
How do you end up like that?
Let's remember when we talk Artemis
Mhm.
that we can't date it, okay? So don't say today.
Oh yeah, no problem. But boy, there's some amazing stuff with that one. I am so happy about that, Dave. I'm so happy about that.
I was like, hey man, to my son, I said, hey man, you gotta watch this. I said, you're gonna be remembering this when you're daddy's age.
Oh, that took me back to when I was like 4 years old, sitting in front of this great big old TV in the floor, just being amazed.
All right, we're coming back in 8 seconds. Thank you, Kitty, T-Bone ×2, Forrest Louis, Necessary Dialogue, Erica, and Matthew for the super chats. We greatly appreciate your love tonight, guys. Thank you. Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth, as we have Swamp Dweller and Terry Hall coming up with the weird news of the week. But first, we want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Abodiment. Abodiment is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp.
So this is a story that took place when I was around 8 years old in my old neighborhood. I was next door neighbors with my best friend Alex. We both went to the same school and always hung out every day after school. One day I was bringing my Nintendo 64 to his house so we could play together. Once I got into the house, his uncle was there watching the TV so we couldn't use it. Today, I now know that he wasn't his uncle because my older sibling, which knew Alex's older sibling, told me that his parents rented out rooms to random people from their original hometown. So, the quote-unquote uncle was just a random stranger from out of the country. He told us to go into his shed to search for an extra TV, so we opened the shed and started searching. We found an older TV, but we could use it. Then, something started moving all the things around, and we thought it was a rat, so we didn't mind at first. Then we heard laughter. Something so scary that I tried to leave, but Alex told me not to worry. We kept searching around for the laughter, and we eventually found this one male doll that was around 2 feet long. It was awesome.
I'm going to cut that short because I accidentally recorded 2 pieces of audio over top of that. I'm sorry about that. That's my fault. That would be a UFO sighting over Philadelphia that I was playing from a number of days ago. I apologize about that. So sorry, Swampy. We're going to cut you off short there because we have a little bit of technical snafu, courtesy of the host, but that's okay. That's okay. Bring in Terry Hall.
Terry Hall got a mustache, standing by the pole. Curled up like a question mark, got secrets to be told. For you folks, the Bigfoot tracks, ghosts that won't behave. He's coming to the headlines like a constant wave. Creatures of the week, yeah, it's strange, yeah, it's wild. For the answers of the enemy to illustrate balls.
I'll leave it to Spaced Out Radio to create mysteries. I guess we'll never know what was in the shed, Dave.
I'm gonna have to record that one. Yeah. So what I do is I record Swamp Dweller. I record about 6 or 7 at a time, and then I just store them, waiting for us to play them. Put them all in order, and I guess I forgot to mute my channel while I was recording it, and
it was just a gremlin in the machine, man.
Yeah, I was trying to listen to this cockpit audio over Philadelphia, where this pilot at about 1,300 feet was flying, and all of a sudden had like this black disc, almost like an orb, like if you stretched out a football, fly right beside them, and because I do my hit nightly on WPHT in Philadelphia, the 5th largest market in the United States for radio, I thought, man, I got to play this. I got to check this out. And I was just so focused on that, I've totally forgot about Swamp Dweller. Well, when you play 2 pieces of audio, it doesn't sound very good. So,
well, I think that's a pretty good excuse. The story like that probably would have drawn my attention as well.
Right.
When I lived in Vernal, I had a buddy of mine who had a private airplane, and I went up and like a little Cessna. I can't imagine what you would be thinking being in a little tin can floating around in the atmosphere and have something like that parked next to you, man. That freaked me out.
Right. Speaking of flying, we got some astronauts in space right now. How awesome is that? Terry, I'm going to get you to turn some volume down. We're getting a little bit of feedback from your microphone. I don't know
why don't we do this? Give me a minute.
So what we're talking about is, I don't know if you watched it or not, but I was absolutely enthralled by the launching of Artemis 2. Like, it was amazing. I felt like a kid again watching the shuttle program take off. And I give NASA a very hard time over UFOs. I do. I'm not the biggest fan of NASA, but I was proud for them when they launched. I was very proud. It felt like something had been missing a long, long time, and finally we got it back, Terry.
That took me back to, oh, by the way, does that sound better?
Yeah, you're sounding better. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I was testing a new setup. It works sometimes it don't. But hey, anyway, that took me back to when I was like 4 or 5 years old, sitting in the living room floor, watching the Apollo guys go up into space. I am so overtly excited about this. I'm crazy happy about this whole thing. This is so cool. And I tell you what, the whole Artemis program is really groundbreaking in a lot of different ways. We've come a long way in space, Dave, and we've got a Canadian up there with them today too.
I know we do. I know. I'm so proud of that. So proud of that.
Now,
I actually I made a political comment on X about that, because there was somebody on X today saying why do we have a Canadian going up on our craft, going to our moon? And I typed in response, he's trying to get away from the NDP convention. Now, if any of you have seen what's happened politically in Canada from this past weekend, go watch it. It's an eye opener.
It's worth a watch.
It was very, very hard to watch and extremely cringe for most people out there. But it was a tough time, and I had to do it. I had to say it. I really had to say it. But 50 years, man. 50 years. And one thing that I didn't know is Artemis, the name, is a goddess who was the sister, the Greek goddess, who was the sister to Apollo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the fact that, you had the Apollo missions, which obviously we landed on the moon for those of us who believe that we did. And now we have Artemis to go back to the moon. I thought that was one of the coolest things ever, man.
That was the last launch since Apollo 17 back in 72 to go to the moon.
In my quest to continue to harp on NASA, though, I will say this. Their camera footage was terrible.
I was going to comment about that.
When you watch a SpaceX launch, their cameras are perfect. They're on the perfect angles. They've got cameras built into the rockets, so you can see the really cool angles of like when the rockets disband from the ship and everything. I'm sorry, I'm not up on my technical jargon when it comes to rocket launches. The booster packs, the boosters. That's what I'm saying. NASA's footage of the cameras trying to be like SpaceX was like the Temu version of rocket launches today. It really was. But I mean, just so impressive.
I was going through a lot of those, and I did find one. And matter of fact, Dave, I'll send this one to you for your son because it came out so absolutely positively amazing. And it was right at liftoff. There's a few, but you got to. During liftoff, there was so much force, it blew the elevator doors off there at the launch pad. It actually blew elevator doors off the launch pad. They're saying that they've got a little bit of repair to do there at that launch pad after Artemis took off.
No kidding. No
But
kidding.
I was wondering about that because, they're up there in high Earth orbit. They're like 43,000 miles up in space right now, where a paint chip, literally a paint chip, a 1 centimeter paint chip, if it would hit them, it hits with like the force of, it's equal to 550 pounds traveling at 60 miles an hour for a paint chip. Imagine all that stuff they had to blow through to get out there. So, even if your Canadian brethren was up there running away from something, they got a lot of chutzpah to go up there where even a paint chip can take a toll on everything. But when it came to the footage, like they're going around the rocket booster, the main booster, but it's like it reminded me of the same kind of footage that they had off of lunar missions. It always seems like it's choppy. Now, Elon Musk has got his Tesla up there, and we got some really like 4K clear shots out of that. So maybe it's a difference between low Earth orbit and high Earth orbit, Dave. I don't know.
Well, I think we're dealing with Rolls-Royce versus Yugo.
Well, Artemis was the first actual real toilet in space. And one of the major problems they had that they're working on currently is that the toilet malfunctioned. But that toilet is so loud when they step into it, they actually have to put earbuds in.
That's a power deuce if you've ever heard of it. My goodness.
One other thing that's original on this one, Dave. Talk about, can you hear me now? They got to take their phones with them.
That's very cool. Good. They can play Candy Crush while they're up there. The only thing that I didn't see on this is it didn't look like Artemis had any windows. Did you see any windows on it? Like, are they just in a capsule that is windowless and they're not allowed to, there's nothing to look outside, or were they covered up? I have to find this out.
I think they were covered up, Dave. Artemis, there's a few other things that's going on with Artemis. It's got a few satellites that it took up with it as well that it's going to be placing up into high Earth orbit. They're test beds to see how electronics are going to perform in solar radiation. But the thing about this whole Artemis thing, Dave, that a lot of people might not even think about is now we're back to an actual global race back to the moon. China is right on our heels with this stuff, man. So now we're back, just like during the Cold War. It's maybe not as pressing, but maybe it is. But now we're back to a global space race. And I think that carries a lot of weight. It really does.
It does.
But now
does.
there's a couple more firsts they're going to be able to check out. This whole thing is amazing. They're going to be able to actually observe a lunar eclipse from space. Talk about front and center. That's going to be amazing. Another thing you're going to be able to do is observe the sun's outer atmosphere from Artemis. So, I mean, this is quite a big deal. They're going to zoom around the Earth for 2 days. Then they're going to head off to the moon. It's going to take 4 days to get there and 4 days to get back to Splashdown. But I think I'm so tickled about this, Dave. I feel like a kid again.
I wonder if they're going to have to pay roaming charges on their phones.
Well, talk about, can you hear me now, man?
Here is, and by the way, I did check it out. Yes, the Orion spacecraft used for the Artemis 2 mission is equipped with windows. So the crew module will be able to look outside. They will be able to see the Earth. They will be able to see the moon and take photographs. I mean, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Like I said, I'm overjoyed about this. Now, another thing this is going to be able to do is all of these naysayers and people who say that maybe we didn't go to the moon to begin with back when I was young. I think we're going to be able to put that to rest too.
The only other disappointment that I have, to be blunt, and this is one's being a little selfish, is Artemis will not fly around West Coast. We will not be able to see it on the West Coast. So when it re-enters Earth's atmosphere and everything like that, now if you have a good telescope, I'm sure you might be able to see it if you have a clear moonlight when it's going around the moon. But for the rest of us, with our eyes, we're not going to be able to see it. That really sucks. But that's okay.
You know who I'm going to be calling about this, don't you? Our good friend Tom King. Talk about the guy with the cameras. There we go, buddy.
Absolutely.
Tom has actually showed me footage from one of his cameras. I mean, that guy can get a close-up of the moon.
Be cool if he could catch something. We got 6 minutes to go before we go to break. Matt Gaetz, the former congressman, now kind of in the media circle, was interviewed on a podcast and news statement the other day about the UAP/UFO story. And he started getting into something a little bit weird, Terry, about whether or not alien hybridization is currently happening on this planet. He believes it is. And they know about it. The government knows about it.
Well, that came from an unverified whistleblower, let's say undisclosed whistleblower. And there are supposed to be between 6 and 12 locations around the country. And what Matt Gaetz had proposed was members of Congress go to these places on a secret day and hit them all at once like an FBI raid. So whatever was there couldn't be moved from location to location to location. But there was a lot of other things that he disclosed on that podcast as well, not just any, the whole secret space program, where everybody was talking about hybrids and things. This is one of the things that Gaetz was talking about. Like he said at the military, we had a very secret program where aliens that were living in forced breeding programs with humans had been abducted from war zones and caravans of migrants. Pretty mind-blowing stuff. And keep in mind, Matt Gaetz was in line to be Secretary of Defense. He's seen secret stuff that other members of Congress haven't been exposed to. One of the other things that he said is that he had seen classified things as far as vehicles that would not be anything that exists on Earth. He's seen classified settings, things that aren't explainable with technology that we know is available. So How much longer can they sit on this, Dave? I mean, this is getting grip everywhere. JD Vance, the vice president, is obsessed with UFOs. He's already said he's tried to go to Area 51 a couple times, but he just couldn't make it. Timing didn't work out. But I mean, even the vice president has said, one of his statements was he has 3 more years of tippy top information, and he's going to get to the bottom of this.
Well, and this is where I think we're going to get more into the UAP drama.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, Matt Gaetz is one of the guys that leans towards that aliens are demons. He's one of that camp, and he stated as much on several occasions.
I think he's very into the subject. He's very much into the subject. He got a piece of what he knows. Obviously, not being a congressperson anymore, he doesn't have the ability to have the top secret clearance or the understanding or the new news of what's going on. But I think that where he's going with this topic is right off the woo deep end. Like he's taken the high platform of woo and jumping right into the pool.
Yeah, he went way past what Obama let slip the other day. And you know what Trump said about all of that? He went on Truth Social and said he was going to declassify all of it, right? But what Matt Gaetz was saying on that Benny show was just plain flat. Look, I've seen things. We have it. It's for real. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And this is something else that's happening besides the other stuff that we've got already. It's coming to a head, Dave.
But the question is, still the debate. Is it going to be alien? Is it going to be alien?
Well, how else would you explain a statement like it would not be anything exists on Earth? Classified things that are not explainable with the technology that we know is available. He was very precise in what he was saying. It didn't leave much room for error in that statement.
The skeptics, Terry, as we got about a minute to go, will say, well, it's just another statement. There's no proof. There's no evidence. But, when they're talking about this type of stuff, they just can't release it.
No. I mean, if you sit and you think about it, if it's this kind of technology, things that could boil down to us average people, where we could maybe get some help with electricity and other things and different forms of transportation where we're not having to get the oil and all that. I mean, there's a lot of different ramifications when it comes right down to it. But somebody like Matt Gaetz, the guy's just freewheeling. He's not really leaving very many bars left closed, Dave. I mean, granted, he can't come straight out and say, look, this thing came from that star over there, but he's pretty putting his foot down saying this stuff didn't come from here, period.
Well, we're going to learn about that and more when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get into the weird news of the week with Terry Hall, as that's why we have him on. And we're going to get into a couple of weird stories here, Terry, that I'm curious of your thoughts.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Spaced Out Radio, weird news of the week. Finishes up this show next. This is Spaced Out Radio. Your host, Dave Scott. All right, buddy, we're clear.
So,
Ruben, how you doing?
For the us YouTube crowd, guys, if you get a chance to see that that interview with Matt Gaetz on the Benny Show. Watch it. It's worth watching. I got a good one too, Dave, talking about potholes and needing to get your roads fixed. I got a good one.
Oh goodness. I got one very interesting one, and actually two very interesting ones, and one that's gonna piss you off.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, you know what they used to say about that? Rather pissed off than pissed on, unless you're into that kind of thing. Remember, we found out last week that there's a guy pulling around carriages that weigh 2,200 pounds with his nipples. So anything's possible, Dave.
Right.
That still cracks me up about that guy, though. Oh, Dave, the dystopian world that we live in today.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
You know, your son and my grandson are going to grow up in a place that just we can't even imagine anymore.
I'm getting so excited, dude. My grandson's going to be here this weekend.
Oh,
Yeah. I haven't given him his Christmas presents yet.
oh, really? That's
No.
going to be a blast.
Oh, my goodness. It's going to be awesome.
That is going to be a blast.
Uh-huh.
Well, take pictures.
Always. Always. Got about 3.5 minutes.
Whoa. Well, this one's close to home. I think we'll talk about this one too. It's one of my favorite ones, as a matter of fact. Where I live here in Oregon, Dave, I mean, 20-minute drive to actually 10-minute drive in several different directions. You can go to some of the most amazing waterfalls
Yes.
that I've ever seen. And there's one, Abiqua Falls. And, oh, the place is just stunningly beautiful. It's one of my favorites. And I just found a story about it today.
Nice.
Yeah. That's one thing about doing this kind of show with you, Dave, is we run across some of the funniest, strangest, coolest stuff.
It is fantastic, isn't it? All right. Let's go here. Got about $1.30.
Yeah, my other setup actually is just little tiny device, but I guess that was just pulling in too much volume, huh?
Could be.
Dead fish cheese Fred. Who are seeing the right? Oh, I thought you were saying that the sky was full of UFOs right now. I was going to say, well, grab a camera. Don't be shy. You know, do you know who Tim Pool is, Dave?
Yes.
He's got that podcast. He actually came out and was reporting on that Matt Gaetz story today, but he let it drop that he's had his own experience with the sighting as well.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's somebody I don't listen to a whole lot, but that was the first place that I saw that was talking about this whole deal with Gaetz.
We got 30 seconds, Terry. Big thank you to Kitty, T-Bone ×2, Erica, Necessary Dialogue, Louie, and Matthew. Thank you for your love, everybody. Thank you for your love. Half hour Spaced Out Radio. We got it underway here. Terry Hall is our guest with the weird news of the week. My name is Dave Scott. And Terry, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to fire you up here. Okay. So if you remember that just a little bit ago, about a week and a half ago, there was that horrific plane crash at LaGuardia Airport where the Air Canada plane slammed into the fire truck. Killing both the pilot and co-pilot. You would think that would be major news in Canada, correct? Because it was two Canadian pilots.
You'd think so, yeah.
So let me explain what's in the news in Canada. This is how screwed up our system is up here right now. Air Canada President and CEO Michael Russo will retire sometime in the fall after nearly 2 decades with the airline, it said on Monday, a week after he made headlines, by issuing an English-only statement and message of condolences for the following deadly crash of Flight 8646 in New York. Mr. Russo has reached a natural retirement age. His decision is consistent with the board's long-standing focus on CEO executive succession planning, a process that has been underway for more than 2 years internally. And Air Canada, Flight 8646 departed Montreal, collided with a fire truck upon landing at LaGuardia Airport March 22nd, killing both pilots, First Officer Mackenzie Gunther and Captain Antoine Forrest. So, as the president of Air Canada, he comes out and gives a statement of condolence, and that Air Canada is going to investigate. Why is this news? I see you're puzzled. Why is this weird news? He's basically been asked to resign from his job because he did not give a statement in condolence in English and French. We are a bilingual country, and even though Air Canada is a private corporation that gets propped up by the federal government, that is what the media is talking about. They're not talking about these two pilots who are heroes who sacrificed themselves for the sake of their passengers and their crew. Because if they tried to turn the plane would have probably flipped and rolled. No, they're talking about the president of Air Canada not giving a speech of condolence in French, and they feel as the national airline of Canada that the president should speak both languages. Never mind the job that he was doing. Never mind how good he was or whatever. And I don't know the guy from Adam. I don't know if he was doing a great job. All I know is that Air Canada Jazz planes have the most uncomfortable seating in the world. But this dude is literally being forced to retire because he didn't give a message of condolence and sympathy en français.
Well, first off, I think if I was part of the French-speaking community, and I mean, okay, Dave, let me ask you this. Do you guys do simulcast where everything is running in French down at the bottom of the screen? Or is that what coming next? I mean, if it's not on everywhere, if it's not on the news, if it's not here, there, and everywhere, why are they holding this guy accountable to something like that?
Terry, I know. It's one of those baffling claims. Look, I just can't believe that they are more concerned about whether or not this dude spoke French. And French is a beautiful language. I love the fact that we're a bilingual country. I do. Except that,
Yeah.
they need the expos back.
Mm-hmm.
They need the expos back.
Yeah, buddy, I agree there. Absolutely. That's ridiculous, Dave.
Yes.
That's just ridiculous. That's not weird. That is weird news. I mean, how much weirder can you get rather than being upset that or heartbroken that There's mothers and sons who don't have fathers anymore. There's loss across the board here, and they're worried about if the guy said, "Hey, I'm sorry" in French. That's ridiculous, man. You're right. That did make me mad, Dave. I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting to the point here with all this political correctness to empathy is going out the window anymore.
Yeah. I want to get to this story too, okay? Because and for our viewers on YouTube, I'm actually going to put it up on screen here. Okay. So there is a mystery going on the beautiful Sea to Sky Highway. Okay.
Mhm.
This is one of the most epic drives in North America. And along the Sea to Sky Highway, they have a gondola. And a mystery remains unsolved 5 years after a second sabotage. Okay. This is where it gets kind of weird. So, police, 5 years after the incident, have released the RCMP Major Crime Section is still saying little about this case, but they finally released a picture of the alleged person who apparently cut the cord, one of those big metal cables, to send the gondolas down, crashing to the ground, causing millions of dollars in damage. But this picture is a little odd because of this. Now, our radio audience will not see this, but I'll explain it to you. They took like a security camera footage still shot of the alleged person who cut the cable. Problem is, the person looks like a Sasquatch.
Since when did Bigfoot learn how to run a cutting torch, man? Well, look, check his union card.
Oh, we're not checking cards here on this show. Let's not even get started there for a second.
That's wild. That thing looks like it's 8 feet tall and it's 3 foot wide, 4 foot wide at the shoulders. Holy smoke, Dave.
And the weird part about this photo is it doesn't have a neck. It's just shoulders to head.
Well,
now, it might be the angle that the photo is taken from, because a photo is obviously taken from higher up on like one of the poles or whatever. Okay. But this is going around, and I saw this on another person's Facebook page. They're like, that is not a human. That is a Sasquatch. But the flip side, was the cable cut? We have to go because that's what the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, have stated. That the cable was cut. Like, you're not just going to get in there with a pair of pliers or nippers to cut this.
No, and actually cutting through a significantly sized cable like that, even with a cutting torch, is a very difficult proposition. It's in between the oil and dirt and grease and everything else. That's a hard thing. But looking at that photograph, Dave, and using FLIR technology a lot myself, costumes, when you have a costume on, looking at it through FLIR, you can tell that it, especially something like a big hairy suit like this, right? But the heat on that is so uniform, and it even gets darker around the midriff. And that is not a costume.
I didn't even realize that.
I'm looking at it just from, just saying, hey, this is a picture. What do you think it is? I mean, without any other supposition or anything like that. But what I'm seeing is, and you could absolutely take scale, known measurements of this place. You could get scale on it. I would say that thing is every bit of 7.5 to 8 feet tall.
It is very interesting.
With the size of that thing, I would say it probably is in excess of 350 to 400 pounds.
So I'm going to read the story here. Okay. So that way we have kind of a perspective of it. The RCMP reopened fully in 2020, or the gondola, pardon me, reopened fully in 2021 after a second round of multi-million-dollar repairs to replace the severed cable and smashed gondola cars. Meanwhile, lawsuits stemming from the vandalism continue to pile up in BC Supreme Court. Sea to Sky Gondola Limited is suing Unified Systems Inc., a company that was hired to install security system after the first camera cable was cut in 2019. Yeah. Its response, USI claims that the Sea to Sky Gondola did not have the budget for the system USI originally designed, opting for a version that was significantly pared back. It says Sea to Sky Gondola failed to remove the gondola cars from the suspension cable each night in order to give them thermal cameras, unobstructed views of the lift and towers. Failed to keep the main cable running through the night, and didn't put up barriers or remove ladders from gondola bases and towers. USI has also filed a third-party claim against Black Tusk Fire and Security Inc. and Landvac Monitoring. Yeah, this story is a big mess, okay, because they are still trying to figure out. Sea to Sky Gondola has doubled its reward offer from $250,000 to $500,000 in order to get to tips leading to a conviction. But to me, if you look at that photo closely, you could go to cbc.ca/news or type in Sea to Sky Gondola Sabotage Mystery. You could check out this photo for yourself. And to me, the size of the legs, the size of the arms, no neck, kind of a pointy head, it looks like a Sasquatch to me.
And you'd be the guy to ask about that. I mean, you know me, Dave. I'm not one of the guys that go out in the middle of the woods looking for something that's that big. That just, no. That and ghosts, I have problems with that kind of stuff. For you guys that go out in the middle of the woods with bang sticks or not, don't care. That thing is the king of hide and go seek, 1,100 pounds. It can boogie like keep on trucking. And if you ever get that thing mad, you're going to be like, like the Hulk and Wolverine, where he tore the Wolverine in half and one half went that way and the other half went that way. No, you're not getting me out in the woods to look for something like that. Now, especially now that I know that it can run a cutting torch. That's just, wow. Hey, I got a story about an animal, Dave. And this is my old stomping grounds down in Huntington Beach, man. There was this dog called Sugar, the surfing dog. It was the first dog ever inducted into the Surfers Hall of Fame. 5-time world dog surfing champion. Sugar was found as a stray there on the beach and ended up being like a rescue dog for the lifeguards there at Huntington Beach. And poor little 16-year-old Sugar passed away.
Oh,
yeah. Hey, but you can still go back and watch that little furry little white canine go bananas on the board. It was so cool to watch, man. It was so cool to watch. But first dog ever inducted into the Hall of Fame, and little Sugar is with us no more.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. But I thought that was cool. But now, look, here in Oregon, where I live, you can, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, in pretty much any direction you pick, you can go find a waterfall. One very iconic waterfall here is Abiqua Falls, and it almost looks like kind of the White Cliffs of Dover turned upside down with a waterfall going through it, if you can imagine that. But as of today, it was actually, and I didn't know that you could do this, it was put up for sale.
A waterfall?
A waterfall was put up for sale. The listing was approved. It was for $2.1 million. And a bunch of lawmakers got together. And believe it or not, it's not every day that you see a waterfall come up for sale on like Redfin or Realtor.com, but it's for real. And so a bunch of lawmakers got together and they pointed up the 2.1 milli. The waterfall's about 30 miles. It's about 30 miles east of Salem. So it's in between where I live and Tim live here. in Oregon. And it's kind of a steep height to get to the place, but Dave, it is astonishing. It's amazing. So I think what they're going to do is they're thinking about putting a bed and breakfast up there. How they're going to engineer that up in, I never believe it. But for once, you could have got on Redfin and actually bought a waterfall. I thought that was pretty cool.
I would never know. Like I could see it if it was on private land, but I didn't know you could buy a waterfall.
Me neither. Like if they ever put up Multnomah Falls for sale, that's going to be cool.
All right. Do you like chocolate, Terry?
I am a chocoholic, Dave. Are you kidding?
All right. Well, you're going to love this story. You will. Many people will. If you're listening and you love chocolate, this is a great story for you.
What, are they going to put
products
Cadbury
from
Easter eggs on the shelf all the time?
Chocolate products from a California company have been recalled. This is a true story. They have been recalled. I've never heard of chocolate being recalled before. After they were found to have been spiked with potentially dangerous ingredients used in Viagra and Cialis. The San Francisco Bay Area Gear Isle recalled the products after they were found to contain undeclared prescription drug ingredients used to treat erectile dysfunction. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced last week the products sold online across the U.S. were found to have sildenafil and tadalafil. What is that? Tadalafil, the ingredients that could cause a life-threatening drop in blood pressure when mixed with nitrates found in prescription drugs. The two recalls products are Golden Lion Aphrodisiac Chocolate Male Enhancement Sachet and Elum Sexual Chocolate Male Sexual Enhancement Booster. The FDA initially issued a warning in February advising consumers not to purchase the second item after confirming the product contained tadalafil. Men who use nitrates to create cardiac conditions or to treat cardiac conditions are most at risk when using these products, according to the announcement, which urged customers who purchase the products to stop using them immediately. The Ilum Sexual Enhancement Chocolate comes in black packaging with yellow and white font that reads Male Sex Chocolate. The Golden Lion product is sold in purple packaging. Gear Island specializes in adult novelties. The company's website says the company doesn't make any of the products it sells. According to the website, Gear Isle has not received reports of adverse reaction from these products. According to the FDA announcement, the company has reached out directly to customers to coordinate and return and refund so that way their body parts don't explode. Terry.
Did you really say that it was spiked, Dave?
Isn't that the purpose? You're eating this chocolate arousal?
Male sex chocolate, dude. Are you kidding me?
It is.
Oh, I'm a chocoholic, but I don't think I've ever had that one in my on my nightstand, dude. I really That's great. That's great.
I thought it was.
So if they were supposed to be enhancement chocolates and they have the enhancement ingredient in it, then what's the problem?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I don't get it. That I don't know. But you're talking about chocolate. Now, this is a big one because Hershey's chocolate, Reese's peanut butter cups, Hershey's chocolate bars, so forth. About 8 months ago, they changed their recipe, and it was noticeable for a chocolate connoisseur such as myself. It was noticeable, but they came back out today, and they said that they're going to go back to their old recipe, just like Coke did back in the day. You remember when Coke and Pepsi pulled that whole like Pepsi Clear and Pepsi Blue and Coke went and changed their formula, and everybody said that it was the worst thing in the world. Basically the same thing happened to Reese's. But honestly, And I'm going to make a lot of people mad with this one, Dave. I've never been a real fan of Hershey's chocolate. I'm a Cadbury guy. Always have been a Cadbury guy. Hershey's just never was to my taste. But public spoke up, and Hershey's is coming back with the good old stuff once again. But now, there's a weird story out of Japan, Dave. And this one...
5 seconds.
All right. So imagine this. You wake up one morning and you see an 11-foot around, 42-foot tall pipe sticking up out of the ground that wasn't there the night before.
Well, that's weird.
A giant underground pipe rose more than 32 feet out of a construction site area in a busy city near Osaka. And the only thing that stopped it from rising even more was it ran into an overhead bridge. But it just, overnight, 32 feet of pipe came up out of the ground.
Must have had some of that chocolate.
It must have. That's what I was thinking.
We know where the chocolate Viagra went.
Went to Japan.
Oh my goodness. Oh man. Terry, I want to say a big thank you for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. I always have so much fun when we do this segment that we call the weird news of the week. And man, if you haven't seen the launch of Artemis, go on YouTube, go check it on out. It was very, very impressive and awesome. As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. Good job, Terry Hall.
That whole thing about that story about, he's going to lose his job because he didn't know French. It just blows me away, Dave.
I did.
Canada is a weird place, man.
Gave his speech, and within hours, the media, the prime minister, everybody was ripping him a new one.
That's crazy.
Deliver a speech in French either.
Hey, there's one more thing about the Artemis thing that's another record breaker. They're going to be actually further out than any other one ever before. They're going to go like another 4,000 miles past the moon before they circle back around and come back this way. So they're going way out there. I mean, Apollo 8 was the first actual lunar visitors, and that was on Christmas Eve in '68. I was 2 years old when that happened. And then Apollo 17 in 1972, those are the ones that the Apollo, say from Apollo 12 to Apollo 15, 16, and 17 are the ones that I actually remember sitting down and watching as they were out. And just, I'm so happy about this, Dave.
Oh, I'm ecstatic about it.
And I tell you what, that young lady that they got on there from Canada, Christina.
No, there's only the one Canadian, and that's the dude, Jeff.
Oh no, that's right. Christina's the pilot, right? So you got Victor Glover, you got Reed Wiseman, Christina is she's a mission specialist. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it's Jeremy Hansen's the guy from Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy Hansen. Boy, he's a tall drink of water, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very tall. He's had a great career as a part of the Canadian Armed Forces.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But like I said, dude, now we're back to a global space race. But I'm so jealous about that because I love watching eclipses. I mean, being here in Oregon, I think it was the first year that we got here was with that really big lunar eclipse that you remember that when it was like about 6-7 years ago now. But they're going to be able to observe a lunar eclipse from space, man. That is going to be cool. And I was going back, and I actually went back on as far as that interview with Matt Gaetz went. And that one, I think we're going to see a lot more traction out of that one because it's hitting hard and fast going across social media pretty quick right now.
Yeah, it is.
So, hey, man, they keep laying more rubber on the road, Dave.
I hear you.
Well, boss, I tell you what, and guys, gang, I am going to call it an evening. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me again, Dave, and I will see you the next time.
Absolutely, brother. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Enjoy that grandbaby, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if he comes tomorrow or Saturday.
Jariah discovered his feet this week, so
nice.
It's been a hoot. Yeah.
Very, very nice. That is awesome.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for having me. Ciao for now.
Hall, we love you, buddy. All right, let's download this bad boy. There we go. And where are we here? Who's on tomorrow night? Give me 2 seconds. Tomorrow night is Ron Janix. We're going to talk some UFOs. Our Keith Andrews on Friday. Here. Yeah, that should be downloaded. Yeah, Artemis is pretty awesome. I was pretty happy about that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See what's happening. All right. Trying to find something animals to look at, but there's nothing there. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Oh, that's highlights. Don't want highlights. We got happening here. Oh, we got hippos here, so we can definitely do that. Hold on. We got some hippos here. They're right in the middle here. There they are. You can see them starting to pop up right here. I don't think those are gators. I think those are hippos. Yeah, those are hippos. Don't you move. Don't move. The guy did this last time. This cameraman did this last time. This camera person has a apparently a big thing against hippos. I don't know why. Well, the hippos are out. We got to move it. You know what I'm going to do to your channel? I'm going to get rid of you. I'm going to go looking for another one. Go see if Tembe's there.
At Cal Tire, we know when it comes to tire changeovers, drop in whenever sounds great until everyone has the same idea.
We got any elephants there? Not seeing any. Not yet, at least. Nothing. What else we got live here? Nothing. Nothing. Well, let's try this one. Oh, we got a giraffe. We got a giraffe. There we go. Wonder if that's the pervert giraffe from before. Giraffes are just awesome. They really are. It's weird how they have to spread their front legs out like that just to get their neck down in order to drink. I'm bored with the giraffe. See if we can find something else. All right, what do we got here? Let's go back to
Make them green
with
envy
Namibia.
and
See if
glow
anything's
in just
happening there.
14 days.
Oh, we have an ostrich and a zebra. Look at this. Oh, that's from a couple days ago. Damn you guys for playing repeats. Ostriches are just so weird.
Or sibling.
Swamp.
Is underway. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate and Matthew for the super chat. For chats, we greatly appreciate your love tonight, guys. Thank you. That was a little too tight. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, the baby zebra. What's happened there? What are you doing there, baby zebra? Let's go back a second here. Let's see what happened to the zebra there. Look at the little guy. Hold on. We're gonna play it back here for a second. All right, baby zebra comes in. Oh yeah! Oh, gee, sorry. Oh, God damn, you caught it on camera too, didn't you? Son of a bitch, he's saying. Look at the ostrich. Oh, we didn't see anything. Didn't see anything, little guy. Damn, it's embarrassing. Look at this. He's walking away with his head down in shame. Yeah, you getting out of there. I think they're having a storm over there right now. But this is still nice to see. Oh, that ostrich. I'm getting out of here. The damn zebras are coming. Don't need any of that zebra stuff around here. Oh, look at that little one. Oh, God, I got to make up for my tripping there. Make a file. there. Check that out. That's already sent. There. And that would be already sent. Holy cow, that was fast. That's 2 nights in a row. That's been really fast. Cool. It's either a good thing or a bad thing. Timing was fine, huh? Oh, well. All right, everybody. We're going to say goodnight here because old Davey got to get up for morning. JC, how you doing? Tomorrow night on the show, once again, Ron Janix from Contact to the Desert. We're going to talk some UFOs with him, and we're going to have a good time with it. So thank you tonight to our super chatters, Kitty Caddywhack, T-Bone ×2, Matthew, Erica, Necessary Dialogue, and Forrest Louie. We greatly appreciate your love and support. Don't forget, you can also support us by joining our membership on YouTube, going on Patreon, because our Patreon is actually starting to get some traction there. And of course, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. There's no ugly swag there, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. And even you, FAP, go shop at Temu. We love you, buddy. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.